I, it's okay. Can you hear me? Or am I on? Am I here? Okay, wonderful. Hi, everyone. Buenos dias. Good morning. For me, it's 9 a.m. for me. Maybe you're in the future and it's noon for you. But it's truly a gift to be back with you. And we're here in a very special time as Mark was sharing as we get ready for all of these wonderful seasons ahead of growth and learning and celebration. And something that I've been meditating on in particular is this moment that we're in right now, that we're standing at a threshold of time and space. So we're in the month of Adar right now. We've just finished Purim, and the month of Nisan begins next week. And shortly after that, Passover arrives on April 1st. Already, we're here. And this month, this particular March, I keep encountering the same image, the same mystery from completely different directions. And this is something that I've learned through my mindfulness practice is to listen when the world is speaking to me. So recently, I've watched friends become parents for the very first time, multiple friends this month alone. And I keep sitting with what it means to watch a human being cross from not yet into here. That moment is stunning. It's permanent. It's terrifying, but also so exciting and new. And this is the moment where something that was interior becomes exterior, where the hidden becomes visible, where the narrow place opens up. And then I come to the calendar and I look at our tradition, and our tradition says, yes, exactly that. That is what this season is. Passover, as we're preparing, commemorates the miraculous redemption from Egypt and the birth of the Jewish nation. Not just liberation, not just escape, but a birth. The nation passed through a narrow place and came out the other side as something it had never been before. The word Nisan, the name of the month, is related to the Hebrew word of nitzan, meaning bud, as in a flower. In Song of Songs, redemption is described as the time that the buds were seen on our land, as if the earth gave birth to a people who would soon flower. But a bud is not a flower. A bud is the moment just before the flower emerges, the held breath, the still forming. And that's where we are right now. And of course, this is aligned with our seasons. But here's what I want to offer you today, because I think the tradition has something specific to say about how you arrive at birth. You know how we treat Elul the month before Rosh Hashanah? We take it very seriously. We have the shofar every morning, Heshbon Hanefesh, the counting of the soul. We understand that Elul is not just the calendar month before the holidays, it's the container that makes transformation possible. We cannot cross into the days of awe unprepared. So we have Elul as the preparation. And there's a teaching that the month of Adar, where we are right now, is parallel to Elul, that they are both preparatory months, but each prepares in a different manner. Elul prepares us for Rosh Hashanah through awe, through the shofar, teshuvah, standing before what is true, even if that's not easy. And Adar, on the other hand, prepares us for Nisan through love, through joy. So we have Elul, preparation through awe, and Adar, preparation through love. So we just came through Purim. We're still here in the month of Adar. And this is our Elul. But the practice isn't just on introspection. The practice isn't gravity or accounting. The Talmud says about this time, Mishenichnas Adar marbim besimcha. When Adar enters, joy increases. Not when you've done the work, not when the conditions improve, joy increases first because joy is the preparation. Why? What does joy have to do with getting ready for birth? Well, because we cannot be born into freedom from a place of constriction. That very word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, means the narrow place, the constricted place. And Adar was, in fact, the last month the Israelites spent enslaved in Egypt, still making bricks, still under Pharaoh. And yet the tradition says that this was a month of joy, not because conditions changed, but because something in them had to widen before the crossing could happen. Joy in Adar is not the denial of darkness, but it is a widening of the vessel, the capacity to hold constriction without fragmentation, to hold both the labor and the longing, both the not yet and the almost here. And anyone who's been in a birth room or around the experience of birth knows that at the threshold, you cannot push harder, you have to open. So we turn to Kabbalah and Hasidut that teach us the concept of hitchadshut. This is something that new that I learned, and I think it's very exciting. That hitchadshut is the ability to renew oneself, to experience time and life as genuinely new at every moment. In Psalms, David writes of God saying, "Today I have given birth to you. Today I have given birth to you." Not once at Sinai, not once in Egypt, but today, every day. This is the perpetual posture of the divine towards us, still bringing us through, still emerging every day. The Hebrew word for the month Chodesh shares the same root as the word for new, which is Chadash. And that was the first mitzvah ever given to the Jewish people as a nation, was to declare the new moon, to mark the newness, to say that something new begins here. And that was the first commandment, not to perform a ritual, but to learn to see when something is being born, to orient ourselves towards beginnings. And that's the time that we get to orient ourselves back into now. So as we prepare for our silent meditation this morning together, I want to leave you with this as we step in. We're in this final stretch of Adar, the last days before Nisan. We are in the metaphor the calendar is handing us, in active labor. Something in us, in this community, in this year, in our interior life, is at the threshold. It was hidden and it is becoming visible. Strength and redemption often unfold quietly beneath the surface. And Adar invites us to recognize those subtle miracles, to consciously increase joy and anticipation of what is yet to come. An anticipation, not in response to, but anticipation of. There is something in you that is in Nitzan that is budding. And you may not be able to name it in this moment, and you don't need to, but the season knows what it's doing. So the invitation here is to bring yourself into the silence this morning or this afternoon, the way that a bud exists in late winter, quiet, beneath the surface, and trusting that the opening is already underway. So today, we open to that space, we open to that birth and that renewal, letting that be our ground. And so I want to invite you to find a comfortable seat. Maybe you want to lay, maybe you want to sit tall, and you can roll your shoulders back and settle in and turn your attention to your breath, starting to notice your inhales and your exhales. And as you begin to ground, either bringing to mind the image of the bud, the budding within you, meditating on that renewal from a place of joy. And I'll call us back in some time. And wherever you are, taking your time, beginning to notice your breath, starting to invite your awareness back into your body, into your mind, and your heart. And if you'd like to join me, you can begin to breathe into your fingers and toes, slowly waking yourself up, and then bring your palms together in front of your heart, feeling all 10 of your fingers connect and build some warmth in your hands. And then we'll bring the palms just over the eyes and softly, gently welcome yourself back to the room and to our community here. What a beautiful way to step into this time together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mariposa. A truly beautiful practice today. And as always, I want to invite everybody to stay present for a few moments to create a minyan of comfort for those of you who are in mourning. So if you are, or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, we have an opportunity for you to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, you have an opportunity to support those who are. Thanks to Harry for sharing the words on the screen. You can put the name or name of anyone you're honoring today in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah,
Rabbah,
Amad,
Dioma,
Yivrat, Yivate,
Dibra,
Yamich, Malchute,
Malchute,
Chayechon, Yomechon,
Techayechem,
Yetechon,
Yemechem,
Yisrael,
Ye,
Hagala,
Israel,
Yisrael,
Hagala,
Shmei Rabba Mevarach,
Shmei
Bamei
Rabbah,
Almai, Yiparach, Yishbach, Yipalar, Yitmamam, Yitnaseh,
Yetadar, Yetalesh,
Bar,
Yetala, Shemay,
Shalem, Halal,
Kudashatu,
Shmei,
Ilah,
Ilam
Shir
Yakol,
Hatashra,
Tushbata, Deshirata,
Tushbachata
Tushbahata,
Benechamata,
Benechamata,
Tushbachata, Benechem,
Amiram,
Baruch
Ta'amar,
Amen,
Amram,
Yehi Shlama Rabba
Shalama
Yisrael,
Rabba,
Yehi Shalom,
Shamaya,
V'chein
Rabba,
Elohim,
Yalchei
Messiah,
Elohim,
Yisrael,
V'Elohim,
Hayim
V'yireu,
Aleichem,
Elohim,
Kol
Amen.
Yisrael,
Say
V'yishmon,
Shalom
V'Yisrael,
Bimrama,
V'yaseh
Say
Shalom,
Shalom,
V'yu
Alinu,
Yalchei
V'Elu,
Tevel,
Yaseh
V'El,
V'chol Yoshei Tevel,
V'Yachol
V'ru.
Yisrael, V'Yimru,
Eleni V'Yakol Yisrael V'Yimru. Amen.
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 Friends, thank you so much for joining us today for this wonderful, really lovely practice led by Mariposa Dueñas. And if you're leaving us now, hope you'll join us tomorrow to sit into Shabbat. Rabbi Dorothy Richmond will be leading us. And if you are leaving us now, we didn't request any gifts for our birthday, but if you would like to offer a gift, may I suggest sending, if you take a moment after the sit today to take a moment and maybe send me an email with a line about the way in some way in which the IJS Daily Sit has enhanced your life or impacted you in a positive way. Even one line, that would be lovely, and I'll share that with the rest of the IJS staff. We'll also have an opportunity to do that in the chat for those who are staying on. But if you're leaving now, just drop me an email. It's mark with a C at jewspirituality.org. Of course, you're welcome to stay on for a conversation with Mariposa about today's practice. I hope you will. Or you could continue just sitting with the beautiful guidance that she offered. Thanks so much for situating us in where we are at this inflection point in the Jewish year. Exactly right. A lot of people may not know. It's an opportunity to learn a little bit about the Jewish calendar. A lot of people may not know that we have not one, not two, but actually 4 New Years in the Jewish calendar. One of which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan coming up next Wednesday night, Thursday, which is the first month of the Jewish year, so which might feel strange for people to think, I thought that's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is the 7th month of the year. So we have these two poles of the year, Rosh Hashanah and Passover. Really thank you for, and the months before leading into that are in a way the end of a cycle leading into something new. So thanks for laying that out for us. And then of course the other two New Year's are Tu B'Shvat, New Year of the Trees, which we had 5 weeks ago. And the little known one is the first of Elul, which is the new year, that marks the year of the determined tithing of animals. That's a lesser known. There are no Hallmark cards or Rosh
That's an
Chodesh
important
Elul.
one.
Yeah. But if only Hallmark could get a hold of 4 New Years. In any event, here's
Wow.
what I thought of. Just to get to the, to cut to the chase of the, the essence of your teaching today, the invitation to sit with using our imagination to understand ourselves as these unopened buds that are about to open. And that moment or that period of time before we become conscious of that, when we become aware that something is happening. In other words, right? Like I walk around the streets of New York City and I see a crocus pop up and I say, oh my God, it's spring. But actually something's been happening under the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before that crocus
Mm-hmm.
popped or daffodil
Yeah.
popped up, or might have been above ground before I paid any attention to it. But it's in a moment of, oh, I actually missed what was happening that brought that crocus to the surface.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of two things as I was sitting. One is, you might be familiar with that quote by Valerie Kaur, the activist, and
The revolutionary love.
yes, Revolutionary Love, who in
Mm.
2016, after the first Trump election, gave a pretty well-known speech. And the quote that what she said was, perhaps this is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb.
Mm.
Which was incredibly powerful to think like, oh, where this is terrible, right?
Yeah.
And to turn it on its head, kind of Purim-like, right? And say, oh yeah, you think it looks terrible. Actually, maybe this is the beginning of the birth of
Exactly.
something amazing. So I thought about that, and I also thought of, and I'll try to get the
Beautiful.
link to this, John O'Donohue, the Celtic poet, has a book of blessings, and one of my favorites in there is a blessing he has, a blessing for new beginnings, which
Mm.
goes exactly to what you were talking about
Perfect.
something stirring within us that is a little bit below the level of awareness, that gradually is coming up and leads to taking a step into the next thing. Or
Yeah.
so I just I'm very immersed in the teaching you offered
I'm so
about
happy.
that. And it's and in such a really, yet another, really what we would say describe as challenging, difficult, terrible, awful times. um, it's such an important practice,
Yeah.
so important. So let me ask you this about, how are,
Yeah.
given the reality in which we live, let alone
hmm
whatever's happening personally in life, because there's always something happening. How do
Yep.
you stay connected to this? How do you stay
Mm.
connected to that? Um, and it's interesting. I don't know if I describe it as hope. I don't think it's really hope.
Mm.
It's more of felt, lived, embodied sense, right? Of
Yeah.
of newness taking shape, right?
Yes. Yes.
When when there's a lot that's dying, you know.
Yes. And that can begin with a thought. And I just want to share, thank you for the question, Mark, and everything that you preface that with. And yeah, I just want to share an interesting season that I'm in personally, that I think just ties into this and will answer your question. So I'm gonna be turning 36 in June. And in preparation for this year, like there's so many markers of time. We have our 4 Jewish New Years, and then we have Rosh Chodesh, and then of course, like on the life calendar, there's the birthday. And going into this year, I think I started to reach a level of acceptance of like, oh, like I'm like life is happening. Like I'm a full-grown adult. Not that I didn't feel, adult in the last few years, but there's something about crossing for me crossing this threshold between 35 and 36. It was like and actually I embrace aging and I love it and I think it's beautiful and I feel blessed and grateful to have every day that I have. So it's not a fear thing like, oh no, I'm this, that. No, it's like it's an excitement, but also I think the word that was coming to me is that like I am accepting that, there are adult things in my life now that will remain, and the responsibilities and the commitments that I have are there and they're big and they're real. And maybe in my 20s or teen years it was like, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, and everything's flexible and I'm not beholden to anything or anyone. And so I share that because there's been this transition between that acceptance, and I shared this with a mentor of mine because I've in the last year I've been finding this balance between keeping my world alive in El Salvador while also being very, very present in my life here in the US and with the work that I'm doing here with our organization. And both those worlds are very important to me. And so I was sharing with her that I've accepted that this is the life that I have and I'm flying and it's exciting and I have the energy and it's beautiful. And she helped me reframe that to say, more than acceptance, maybe it's about appreciation. Maybe you're learning to appreciate all of these realities of your life. And that really struck me because even just that change of the word, it's more about I'm how I'm the frame of my choice with joy and like, oh yes, I have to accept this. Not that that's how I felt about it, but it's been empowering to me. And so when I think about, the world that we're in and the moment that we're in, um, I'm finding myself holding that balance of appreciation for what life and what growth presents to me in these moments of time, and that's like on a very personal level. And then when I look at the things of the world, I mean there's so many things that are heavy and they hold us. In so many ways. And I think sometimes I get to the point where it's just kind of like this numbing feeling. And if anyone else is feeling that way, you're not alone in that. It's also too much information all of the time. And that's where I think these practices are so important to come back to breath. And something I found so, 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 so important for me is getting in touch with the earth. And that's why I wanted to bring this teaching in today, to bring us back to the awareness of what's happening on our on in the soil, what's happening in the soil. And even though we can't see what's happening, our earth is so intelligent and so resilient, and no matter what's happening on the surface of the earth, the underneath, everything is still alive and growing. And that's a signal to me, if the earth can keep going, so can I. But the earth also takes its time, and it slows down, and it doesn't push, and it takes in what it needs and it receives. And so I've been spending time in the sun as often as I can, even if it's just getting like 5 minutes in the sun, or trying to like be in the grass and be in the flowers however I can. That's easy to do here in California, so I'm sorry for those who are in colder places. But that has been really important for me.
I really appreciate all of that. And yeah, it leads me to make the suggestion for myself and for others who have that available to, at some point today, take that to heart. And whether it's going out and, like you said, just
Mhm.
trying to receive some sunlight, or walking around and being curious and attentive to what's happening in the natural world wherever you are at this time. And even if there's no evidence of spring where you are in the Northern Hemisphere, to be aware of what's happening under the surface. Or just look for, I always like, even in the early winter, like I sometimes look at trees and look at the, because buds can, buds form on bushes and shrubs and trees.
Hmm.
And I always find that incredibly comforting, and even in the midst of winter, to see the bud. And somebody put a great quote in the chat. Aeneas Nin, I think it was. If I'm pronouncing that right. Somebody will correct me, please. Yeah, and the time came when the risk it took to remain tightly closed in the bud was greater than
Hmm.
the risk it took to bloom. That's also that's a
Oh,
good
I love
Seder.
that.
That's a really good Seder reading too, by the way, for people.
Mm.
Save that one for your Seder, because it really also describes that interplay between constriction and expansion. And to go back to what you're saying about the birth process, that and I'm not speaking from direct personal experience, of course, but those, some of you have been through that, have lived that experience directly. There's a time to push, obviously. There's a time not
Mm.
to push. There's a time for contraction, and there's a time not for contraction. And sometimes there are contractions, right? There are the
Hmm.
false contractions or
Hmm. Hmm.
activity, that before the birth is happening. I was thinking about that as well as you were describing it, that where we could say, oh, it's not happening. It's not happening yet, but actually it's
Hmm.
all part of that process. It's all part of the
Right.
process. And
Yeah.
um, that softening that you invited us to, which by the way, like I always love how you, close out our session, our sits together.
Mm. Thank you.
Which invites that warmth and body awareness and comfort and self-compassion, which is such an important part of the practice. So anyway, I'm throwing that out for folks.
Yeah.
All right,
I
here's a
think we're all
question.
doing our best.
We are all doing our best under,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, thanks for the report from Minnesota, from Minneapolis, Anita, where they
Wow.
there's a little signs of spring, and boy, we hope spring will come there in many ways, 4 or 5
Yes.
many one-day springs. So Glenn is asking, how do we understand into appreciation that that the place we are in at this moment is the fullness of all places, and it's also fine to appreciate this constrained place of buds and blooms. I guess, Glenn, I don't know if I paraphrase that question right, and we only have 1 minute anyway here.
Hmm.
Uh, holding both constraint and
Hmm.
expansiveness at the same time.
Hmm.
The other
Hmm.
quote, I'm just full of quotes today, that came to mind. Now this one I don't remember. I'll get the source and share it tomorrow, but a beautiful source that stays with me about holding grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and being stretched wide in between. That
Mm.
is what life is about. And that also came to me thinking about this. You could substitute, like you did today, joy, right? That
Hmm.
we can, building on our favorite, Rumi poem at the Staley Sit, the guest house, of welcoming every
Mm.
feeling, the dark one, the so-called dark ones or challenging ones, including
Yeah.
grief and joy at the same time. And I love that image of being stretched between them and
Yeah.
everything in between. So I don't know if that's helpful, Ryan, or addresses what you were saying, but
Yeah. I'll just add that it's human. It's very human to hold the this and that at the same time. And it doesn't mean that that's easy, but there is the more I'm on this earth, the more I understand that those two things live side by side next to each other in so many ways. And I think leaning into wisdom to make sense of the mystery of how these things work together is really powerful.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Thanks, Eileen. It is Francis Weller. All right. As we end, we're over time, but we're going to let's leave the we'll leave the Zoom room open for a minute. And I see there are some very lovely notes that people have already put in, but if you haven't and
That's sweet.
are moved to share some observation about the impact of the daily sit on you and your life, keep them coming, and I will share them, as I mentioned, with the IJS staff. And gratitude to Harry Gilboa. I noted in the
Thank
chat
you, Harry.
also that today is Lester Shane's birthday as well, not his 6th, but wonderful. It's a wonderful coincidence. Lester is a stalwart member of this community of practice. And Lester, I want to wish you a happy birthday. Many blessings to you for health and goodness in the next round. Turn around the sun. Mariposa, really grateful to you. It was really what a wonderful way to mark this milestone for us in this beautiful way today. Thank you, as always.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Safe travels to you on the road.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
happy double high coming up to you also.
Yes.
It is big. And
Double life.
Yeah. So we hope to see everyone tomorrow. Sit into Shabbat with Dorothy Richmond, everyone. We continue to pray for safety and for shalom in these really very, very scary times, and grateful to have this opportunity for us to gather and center ourselves so we can meet all these challenges. So many blessings, everyone. Stay safe and well.
Thank you.